Well, we're still talking about the Electoral Act amendment bill, which has now been passed once again, amended once again, and passed by both chambers of the National Assembly yesterday. And the offending part, which had prevented the president from giving his assent to the bill, was dealt with by the National Assembly, and it now reads, I think it's section 84, it now reads slightly different. And we're talking about it with Honorable Ogene Ego, but I also understand that we also have with us a guest via Zoom. Senator Victor Umeh joins us via Zoom from Enugu. He's the former chairman of APGA. Honorable Umeh, if you can hear us, welcome to the program this morning.
Yeah. Thank you. Good morning, Mark.
Let me ask you a quick assessment of the amendment as done by the National Assembly yesterday. Are you satisfied that both direct, indirect, and consensus options were adopted by the National Assembly? Yeah,
let me commend the National Assembly for doing further job on this controversial bill, particularly as it's related to Section 84 of the Act. Last week, when the Senate passed its own version and included consensus, without specifying how a consensus candidate can emerge to become an option for nominating a candidate, I discussed those clauses and disagreed with the Senate. I agree with the House of Representatives to the extent that the House of Reps rejected that consensus. I pointed out that the Act itemized steps you will take to nominate a candidate if you choose direct primaries, and then went further to specify the steps you must take if you choose indirect primaries. If you then choose consensus, the Act did not specify the steps you will take to get a consensus candidate. So to that extent, I felt that the provision for consensus candidates was vague. It wasn't clear and precise on how you can use that to nominate a candidate. Now they have gone to conference, and from what they passed yesterday, Mark, I can tell you that I'm largely satisfied with all the three options, because they now went on, like they did in the other options, to specify what will constitute a consensus candidate, how you can get a consensus candidate. They now said all declared aspirants for a particular position, for a particular elective position, if the declared aspirants begin to withdraw in writing and endorsing a particular person as the consensus candidate, if all other candidates, all other aspirants withdraw in writing and endorse somebody who is remaining, then a consensus candidate has emerged. You go on now to subject that person to the process of a special congress or on convention, as the case may be, depending on the level of election involved. So if you go to the special congress or the convention, as the case may be, you now use a yes or no vote to ratify that person as the candidate of the party. So I think the process has now been opened up. You can now see how that consensus candidate will emerge. When declared aspirants have all withdrawn for him in writing and endorsing a particular candidate to be the consensus candidate. So once you do that, that's fine. We then go back to the party people through a congress, whether convention or special congress, to confirm the person as the candidate of the party. So it has opened up the process. You now know what to expect and how it will come about. So
in other words,
with that. And, yeah.
In other words, you don't see any reason whatsoever why this bill should not sail through, going all the way.
I don't see anything again the president will say, because the three options direct primaries, indirect primaries, consensus. We have all now known how that will come about, how a candidate can be produced through the three options. I don't see what the president can hold on to now to say he will not give assent to the bill, because everything is now clear. There is nothing vague in the provisions anymore. And it's left for the parties to use those options to go ahead to nominate a candidate they want to represent them in the election. So the president cannot do anything but sign this bill. I believe so, because if they had sent it the way it appeared last week, if the clause on consensus candidates was not reduced further to processes of getting that consensus candidate, the president may latch on it and say he will not sign because this will be undemocratic. I don't know how this candidate will come about. And they won't blame him. But now that clog has been removed. We now know how a consensus candidate can emerge when all the cleared aspirants have withdrawn for a particular person. And it's almost like coming to where there is a single aspirant that is in the indirect primary or direct primary. One after sale of forms and only one candidate purchases form, one aspirant purchases form for a particular position, then you subject to the person to special congress or special convention. But where aspirants are more than one or two, and at the end, the others withdraw for one person in writing, it has actually brought you back to the same situation of having a single aspirant. Then you take the person to special convention or congress to ratify the person. So it's no longer nebulous. It's clear now. Everybody understands what we'll do and what to watch for a consensus candidate to be acceptable.
So one of the questions that has come to my mind, and I don't know how many other people, is that whichever of the options, is thrown up, the question of competence or not is also there, because at the end of the day, it will sound like the only time we have any kind of debate or interrogation of the candidates is when they have become candidates, flag bearers for the party, so to speak. Is there any process that you can say, okay, let's interrogate these persons, not for political reasons, not for the sentiments that Honorable Egoste talked about the other time, ethnic sentiments, political sentiments, religious sentiments, to throw up a candidate, but for the capacity of that candidate to even play at all? Those sentiments, I don't know how we can get by them in order to throw up the right set of people who can do the right set of things that Nigerians really do expect.
Remember that nomination of candidates fall within the purview of the political party. And it is left for the political parties to nominate candidates that will be acceptable to the electorate. The way they do it is their business. If they bring people who are not credible, those people will face other credible candidates that will be nominated by the other party, and they will lose the election. So the cleansing aspect of this process is for a party to choose or nominate through any process they have selected, a candidate that will beat the other candidates that will emerge from other political parties. It is only when you subject these candidates from the various parties that the electorate will now make a choice of who they will vote for, who moves on, who gets ahead. If a party makes a wrong choice, they will be shooting themselves on the foot in the election. So if they like, then nominate a criminal that is known to the whole world and bring him as a candidate. Go through democratic processes in your party as outlined in the Electoral Act. Let the candidate fail through. Then put him forward, a thief. The electorate will reject the thief without winking. So sentiments of religion or any political sentiment, whatever that will play on the final outcome of the general election, will be what the political parties will watch. in nominating people they will put forward in the election. That you are a candidate from a party does not mean that you have won the election. You are not going to take part in an election where the voters, eligible voters, will choose you ahead of others. So the job of ensuring that you bring credible candidates to contest the elections for you will fall on the party. And that is something they must exercise very carefully and very cautiously, knowing that if you bring a wrong candidate, you've lost the election.